Hello, everybody. Welcome to Futro Hidden Movie Gems podcast. I am your host, Ty Christensen, and I am joined by none other than Jordan Christensen.
6, 7, go to hell or go to heaven. Whoosh, yeah, that's the spirit.
It gets funnier every time. And we're also joined by none other than Cameron Mickle. Cameron, what's up?
What's up, nerds?
And we are joined by none other than our guest today, Wesley Tibbetts.
Hello, everyone. Here I am. Rock you like a hurricane. As the Scorpions did before you.
We are talking about Ridley Scott's Blade Runner. This film came out in 1982. It was directed by Ridley Scott, written by Hampton Fancher and David Webb Peoples. Stars Harrison Ford, Rutger Hauer, Sean Young, many, many others. We're going to go around and get first impressions. What was it like watching this movie for the first time? What was it like rewatching it for this podcast? Let's start with Jordan.
First time watching it, it took me 3 times to get through it. I watched the final cut, I rented it, and I think I had to rent it twice on iTunes because my rental expired, and so I had to re-rent it to finish it because it kept putting me to sleep. It's so relaxing. And then I was like, I don't understand why people like this movie. It wasn't until like in college, I wanted something playing in the background while I was doing my homework. Netflix had it, and they had the theatrical release version on it. And so it had Harrison Ford's narration. And so I'd listen to it while I was doing my homework. And I know a lot of people, well, there's more people leaning towards the final cut version. I actually fell in love with the theatrical release version. I don't love it as much now, but back then in college, it was perfect because I was just listening to it. And so hearing Harrison Ford narrate what was going on, I was like, oh, I actually understand what the movie's about. And so I listened to it, maybe 100 times in college because that music is so good. Rewatching it, I was just trying to listen to all the, what's it called when they add in voices later?
Dubbed.
Yeah, there's another word for it. Anyways, I caught it when Harrison Ford meets with Dr. Brian.
The police chief?
Yes. You could hear there's little lines when he's telling them about the different skin jobs. He's like describing them, and you can hear the little voices kind of because it sounds so different and almost out of place. And they're just like little moments where he snuck them in. It's just such an amazing film. Glad we get to talk about it because it is my favorite movie of all time. But it makes me a little nervous talking about it because I'm like afraid what you guys are going to say about it.
Tread lightly. Hey, relax, man.
No, you can be honest, but I didn't want to talk about my favorite movie of all time on the podcast because it's just perfect. I don't see any reason to talk about it. Everybody online has analyzed this film to death.
Yeah, but we haven't, and we all have something amazing to bring to the table, things that have never been discussed before.
Do we? Do we have something new to say?
I do.
Yes, we do. We are all snowflakes that are each unique and special. We're going to add our little beams of light into the internet and chime in on this movie.
Cameron?
First time I was watching it was for the podcast. It was definitely not what I expected because I was expecting like the most boring movie of all time. It was a lot more interesting than I expected, and like I was pretty engaged like almost the entire time. Like the second half of the film, I was a little bit more kind of like what's kind of happening. I was a little lost. In the first half, I was actually like really enjoying it. I thought like the characters were like really funny. Like that first initial interview I loved. I don't know. I was just a lot more enjoyable than I was expecting. Jordan was kind of like, I fell asleep the first 3 times, and I was like, oh man, this is gonna be rough. And I watched it. I was like, this is actually pretty enjoyable. I'm not sure why I fell asleep.
It's that music, that synthesizer.
The music is dang good. I almost caught myself falling asleep once just to the synthesizer.
See what I'm saying? That's what I'm talking about. That music puts you to sleep, man.
Yeah, it does, but it's dang good.
It's relaxing.
I didn't bother to see this movie because I'm like, I like Star Wars, and Harrison Ford is Han Solo. Why do I need to see Blade Runner? He's like a wannabe Solo. Jordan convinced me. He's like, well, this is the most important movie of all time. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I watched it, and I'm like, I get why you like it. I really did like it the first time I saw it. I even enjoyed it more the second time because I was laughing more. Even though I knew some of the elements around this movie, it was fun to rewatch it because I was like, oh, you know what? There were more things to enjoy. About my whole thesis of tonight is basically that the replicants are more human than actual human beings in this movie.
Most definitely.
And I remember thinking like some of the actors are like pretty wooden and everyone's like droning on like zombies, but I'm like, oh, that was very intentional. So I caught that on this viewing. So I thought that was pretty fun.
It's a lot like 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah, very good comparison.
Tyrell says more human than human.
Jordan, I'll give you the floor back in just a minute. Okay, let me finish my thoughts. That's all I have to say. Wesley.
I think I had stupid high expectations for this movie because as a concept artist, I've been aware of Blade Runner for a long time, and I'm a really big fan of Sid Mead, which in the credits, he's called visual futurist. And I was like, man, I wish that was my job title. That sounds way cooler than concept artist. I'd seen his paintings for Blade Runner, and I'd seen a lot of the production paintings and sketches that he had done. And I thought, wow, this movie looks really cool. It was just one of those things where it's like I always wanted to see it, but I just never got around to. I begged Ty to come over and have a movie night. The first time I saw it, I was just blown away by the spectacle of it. How well the visual effects hold up and just the kind of visual world building and the costumes and the production design and the cinematography and the lighting. And I was just like, wow, this is a really cool looking movie. I can appreciate Blade Runner for what it is. And I would say that it is indeed a hidden movie gem, but it is just not one of my favorite movies. I love sci-fi, and I think that when I was watching it, the theme I was getting was how do we treat sentient life that isn't human? And I think that's a really cool subject to explore in sci-fi, and I think it's becoming even more relevant now that we have, smart assistants and machine learning, and Elon Musk is building computers that can play Dota. AI is around the corner, and how are we going to handle the kind of moral, ethical dilemma that presents itself? I think it also goes even deeper than that, where it's like, how do we treat people that are different than we are? How do we relate to people that feel a different way or look different, and it's that kind of dehumanizing thing. That's kind of what the movie's all about, where basically it's like they look human and then they answer a couple questions and all of a sudden they're dehumanized and they're not human, and then he just has the right to just shoot them. I think the theme is really, really important, and I totally dug the theme.
I want to hear like how you would go further into the theme, but thanks for giving us a brief thing. So we'll get to that in a minute. Let's go around and say two of our favorite things about this film. Jordan, why don't you start us off?
The music, I won't say more than that, other than it's a perfect score and it matches perfectly with the visuals. I listen to the soundtrack while I'm driving on the road, and if you're flying past other cars and you're listening to that music, it sounds like you're like in space flying. It's cool. And sometimes I'm going so fast I lose track of my speed limit.
Pew pew! Jordan's on the freeway.
I don't know, this sounds really weird, but I like to make out to girls with the soundtrack. It's really fun.
On Earth, did I just hear?
What on earth? Oh, I did not see that one coming. Well, there you go.
He likes to bar the door and kind of push him against the wall, Harrison Ford style, and be like, say that you want to kiss me.
Yeah.
There was one girl, I didn't recommend it to her, I just told her what my favorite movie was, and then she went and watched it, because this is a movie I don't recommend to people, because I don't want to hear them bash on it. I love it, and I just want to...
now I feel bad. Oh, boy.
No, you're good. And anyways, so she went and saw it, and then that was the first thing she brought up. He's very aggressive.
Jordan's like, he's my hero. I idolize him.
Oh, boy.
It's my second favorite part of this movie. It's a close tie between Harrison Ford and Rutger so much. I love him in The Hitcher. I love him in Hobo with a Shotgun. And I love him in Lady Hawk. He is so good. And that end monologue, once we get to quotes, I will quote the whole thing by memory because I have listened to it 1,000 times. But I just love his performance. I felt more connected to him as a robot than I did to the humans. Every line he gives is so good. It's like creepy and eerie. And he's just like, I want more life, father. And it depends on which version you've watched, because the theatrical release, he says, I want more life, effer. And you're like, what the fudge? It's pretty intense. And then when he's like got Harrison Ford's hand and he's like, this is for Prisk. And it's like, this is for Zorak.
He commits to that.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Bizarre role. Like, by the end, you can tell he's having a good time.
Dialing it up.
Like a little kid running around in his underwear.
Oh yeah, running and chasing after him, which is so creepy. And he's like howling like a wolf. That monologue at the end, he totally came up with that. He was just so invested into this character. And that's why he makes such a good crazy person in this one and also in Hitcher, because he just plays this perfect psychopath. He just really puts himself into the roles. He just gets lost in his characters.
Wesley, how about you?
The visuals. I liked the music as well. I was more just kind of blown away with how well it holds up visually. I think if you were to take like some kind of modern day sci-fi movie, like the live action Ghost in a Shell with Scarlett Johansson, like I feel like if you were to take 1982 Blade Runner and put it next to that, I think it would hold up pretty well. Like the cinematography and the effects and the way the cars kind of drop in, and it doesn't look like they're on wires, doesn't look like that broken ride at Disneyland. They kind of float in and float away. And
well, have you seen the theatrical version or just the final cut?
I've only seen the final cut. I haven't seen
Okay, because the theatrical version, actually you see a wire pull up one of the cars.
Oh, man. Oh, well.
That's why Ridley Scott went in and he fixed that. That's why the final cut, you can't see it.
Okay, well, I guess that makes sense, because I was like, wow, these look really good. But the design of the Tyrell Corporation building. It's just this giant monolith, and these buildings, just the scale of the buildings, just caverns of lights and color, and it's just, you know, these little dots that are the cars that are just kind of zipping by, and they're really kind of heavily Asian inspired. You know, everything just kind of feels like Chinatown ghetto, and it's just visually, it's the colors, and it's just, I think it was cast really well. I really can't think of anyone that I would be like, oh, you know what, like that wasn't a very good actor. I think they all played their parts really well, especially the guy that plays Tyrell. I mean, he's just got those weird lips that are just kind of like pursed, and he's just like, I want to see you do it on a human. And where did they find this guy? You know, like, what other movies has he been in?
And those glasses, holy crap. Those are...
those big dorky glasses. Yeah, those are my two favorite parts. The visuals and the casting.
I concur.
You guys hit definitely the two best parts, music and the visuals. One, I really enjoyed seeing Harrison Ford, younger version, because I haven't seen a movie of him like young in a while, and it was really good. He did an amazing job in this role. So that kind of led into like one of my questions, because I was a little bit confused. So is there any indication that he might be a robot, replicant?
He is 100% a replicant.
No.
Well, there's that part where he just got punched in the face by Leon. He's back at his apartment with Rachel, and he's washing the blood out of his mouth. She's like, if I was to go north, would you hunt me down and kill me? And he's like, no, I owe you one. And then he walks behind her, and he's in shadow, and he turns, you can see the little glowy things in his eyes.
That's not the only evidence. There's hundreds of evidences that he is a replicant. But hear me out. Harrison Ford, the actor, to this date doesn't actually believe that he is a replicant. And you know what's so cool about the sequel, Denis Villeneuve, when he made the Blade Runner 2049? He still allowed that Harrison Ford's character could still ambiguously go on in his identity, whether he's a replicant or not. They still don't clarify it. And I think that's so cool. Like, what a perfect way to make a sequel. You have Ridley Scott, who heavily believes that his motive was to make him a replicant.
I really enjoyed like their perception of the future. It just kind of reminded me of Back to the Future and when they went to the future.
Yeah.
It's just kind of funny how in every single futuristic time, it's always they just think that we have flying cars. If that constitutes like a futuristic society, it's like funny seeing like their perspective. Like, this is what the future is like. The style I thought was really funny of everybody. I'm like, everything is like so over the top, obnoxious, and like they're minimalizing the amount of clothing that they wear, which is funny because at the same time, like today and age, you see fashion models wearing like the weirdest clothes. Like that chick that when she's like running out in the streets before she gets killed, when she's wearing like that
Plastic rain jacket.
the plastic invisible jacket over her. I'm like, what is the point of this thing? I'm like, what on earth?
It's her invisibility cloak. It certainly wasn't bulletproof, we'll put it that way.
No, it
or
was
window
not.
pane proof. She ran into all of the window panes.
Yep, she ran into all of them.
Props to the stuntman that did that.
Oh, yeah, he probably got cut up. A good one, dude. We mentioned the soundtrack. I've only, in like 3 different movies in my life, have gone back and listened to the soundtrack after I watched the movie. Moana, Shrek, Jordan and I bought the CD. After I watched the movie, I was like, I just want to listen to the sound I heard, because the very first image with the synthesizer, the eyeball. Yeah, the little...
What, you don't remember? We listened to Muppet Treasure Island growing up, too.
Oh, there's another good soundtrack, too. It's true, we had a few good ones. Shiver my timbers.
And you mentioned on the other podcast you listened to the soundtrack of 28 Days and 28 Weeks. Ty, you're...
I'm starting to think I listen to more soundtracks than I give credit for. It was fun, though, because if you listen to the soundtrack of this, you'll hear Harrison Ford talking.
Have you ever retired a human by mistake?
Yeah, the whole conversation is actually one of the songs.
Here's the $1 million question. Blade Runner 2049, Blade Runner 1982. The soundtracks. Which one's better, do you think? The OG or the Hans Zimmer trying to kind of copy Vangelis?
The only reason I say the older one is because the new one doesn't have as much music as I'd like it to have. There's a lot of scenes where he's just walking around and it's silent. I get why he chose to do that, but I wanted more music. It would have been...
The swells, right?
Yeah. It might have been better because Hans Zimmer, oh my gosh, is amazing. And there's a few songs in there that are unbelievably good, but unfortunately there just wasn't enough music in my opinion.
I listened to it on Spotify, and I thought they did a good job of mimicking the style of it, kind of modernizing it a little bit. It is very much just kind of tension music.
I'm not gonna lie, you guys, it is crazy to think about this movie, but the timeline, like this happened in 2019. This movie we just watched. I want to shout out to the term Futro, which is like a past era's vision of what the future would look like.
Hey.
Somebody said the style is as if the iPhone was never invented, if Steve Jobs never existed.
We would have flying cars, but still use Polaroid photos.
We would have flying cars.
Well, I don't mean flying cars, but I meant the style.
Oh, we could use Skype, but it would cost $1.25. That's the sad thing.
Oh, that's right. No more payphones. Now you have pay Skype phones.
I love the discussion of whether or not Harrison Ford's character is a replicant. Now, I actually don't think that matters all that much. His identity personally to the story doesn't add to the whole question with Rutger Hauer's character is the whole idea of being a replicant mean that you're less significant than a human or you have less of a soul than a human being. Philip K. Dick's book, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? The idea that we dream of animals and that an android could dream of electric sheep, does that make the sheep any less real than the sheep that we're dreaming of? Is Harrison Ford a replicant or is he not?
I obviously think he is, because I've seen 3 or 4, maybe 5 different cuts of this film, and every single one...
You're most qualified to
well,
talk
no,
about this.
but I'm just saying, like, I had them all playing simultaneously, too, which is kind of fun, because you get to see, like, where they differ.
Wow.
Wait, real quick, give us perspective.
I had 4 on my computer and 1 on my phone.
That is amazing.
Wait, did the final cut, was it the last one to end? Did Ridley Scott add in a lot more?
In one of the cuts, he added Harrison Ford having a dream where he could see that unicorn. And it's that same origami that he left on his desk. It's just essentially saying, like, oh, these memories were planted in your brain. So in that cut, it was like, oh, he's obviously a replicant. But this one leaves it a bit more dubious in the final cut. And then the studio's ending was hilarious because it was like this cheesy, like they're driving off into the sunset. Like, it's so weird.
I kind of want to see the other cut, the theatrical cut now. I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, it sounds like it changes the whole...
I like it.
Most of the general consensus is to watch the final cut.
Somebody said because Harrison Ford kind of phoned in the narration, which, I don't know. I just love Harrison Ford's voice, so I'm fine however he recorded it. So
I wonder if Harrison Ford is kind of like a John Wayne style actor where he doesn't really change his character all that much.
Yeah.
When he's playing a different role, he's basically just Harrison Ford as this. He's not Daniel Day-Lewis where he literally chameleons into something entirely different and you don't recognize him from one movie to the next.
Well, no, I would say it was acting when he acted across from a CGI dog down a river rafting trip. His most latest film, right? Like, I mean, I don't even know what it was called, but that's acting right there, dude. Talking to a tennis ball on a stick. He's got range. Right there, dude.
Getting his paycheck and bouncing because that's kind of what he sounds like when he talks normally. So it's like, we call it void comp, you know? I think he's a human. I want him to be a human. I think it works better in the overall narrative if he's a human. After Inception, I kind of made the deliberate choice not to overanalyze the endings in movies because my buddies in the animation program, I mean, they just were up at night. It's like, guys, is it possible that Christopher Nolan just thought, oh, wouldn't it be fun if he spins the thing and it doesn't fall over?
To Christopher Nolan, when they asked him in the interview, it's not about whether he's dreaming or not. He accepted it as his reality, and that's the life he's going to live. And it's like, whoa, like it even blows your mind further. You're like, Christopher Nolan isn't interested in answering your stupid question. But there's a great scene earlier in the film when all those people, they all go asleep in that guy's basement, and he's like, what are they doing? They all come here to sleep? And he goes, no, they come here to be waking up. Oh, like, it was literally foreshadowing, but it is fun to speculate.
I think he really wanted people to believe he was a robot because he even says in an interview, he's like, oh yeah, he's definitely a robot.
In my opinion, I think Rachel is the most interesting character in the whole movie, and I wish she had way more screen time, and I wish that she did more, and I wish that there would have been a scene where she meets with Tyrell after she finds out she's a replicant, and how that conversation went down, because basically she's like, oh, now there's 4 replicants you gotta hunt down because the one Rachel quit.
All I can say is I love Ridley Scott so freaking much. Do you know when he decided to finally make this film? First, when they offered it to him and said, hey, we'd like you to direct this, he was like, no, not right now. And then his brother passed away. He just felt really connected to this film afterwards. You can just feel that he funneled all his emotion into this movie. You know, the whole time they're trying to figure out, like, what's my purpose in life? You know, what am I doing here? And, like, to meet your maker and him just to say, oh, we made you as well as we could. You don't really have any purpose here. Oh my gosh, no wonder he squeezed out his eyeballs. Like,
what I was seeing, I kind of felt like he was human, but I don't know, I just kind of had like this feeling that he was a replicant, just because one of the biggest things that I felt like the reason that he was a replicant is because he was the James Bond of catching replicants. And so I was like, who better to catch a replicant than like another replicant? You could know how they think.
I think it's cooler if he's just a normal guy. He doesn't have Nexus 6 strength. He's just an average guy who gets his fingers broken. And
I want to tie this to iRobot. There's a great scene in iRobot where, okay, I don't want to spoil the movie iRobot for anyone that hasn't listened, but I'm going to explain explain it real quick. So you have Will Smith's character. He hates robots with a passion, right? And he hunts them down, or he wants to prove that they're fallible, that they can commit crimes, they're not good for humanity. And you find out his beef with them, it had to do with an accident, and the robot mistakenly saved his life when it should have saved the other people's life, in his opinion. So he thinks they're morally bankrupt. And you find out later that he is part machine too. It's pretty awesome when he gets in this altercation with this robot and he fights it, and it like finds out that it has a robot arm, and he's like, yeah. And he blocks a freaking beam of like metal being swung at him with his forearm. That's why I like this movie more, because the answer isn't clearly given. Because you have the head actor. It's not like a feud between Rian Johnson and Mark Hamill talking about how they use Skywalker. It is literally Harrison Ford claiming that he is not a replicant.
Well, what's so fascinating about that is you've got Ridley Scott using all his film techniques to try to prove that Harrison Ford is a replicant, and then you've also got Harrison Ford acting like a human, which is why in Blade Runner 2049, he seems more human than robot.
Right. So aside from the eyes, there's another good scene where, one, Rutger Hauer spares his life. Now, he doesn't really have a lot of regard for human beings, as we see, gouging out Tyrell's eyeballs with his thumbs.
I have done unquestionable things. Nothing that a god in heaven can't let you in for.
I like what would a movie scene be like to see a creator of someone? It's not like a father-son relationship. It's very much colder. Your toaster coming to you and being like, you manufactured me, and the brave little toaster ends up burning your hand or something like malicious like that.
Like Chappie.
Like Chappie.
I am consciousness.
I think it's really cool that we're mixed, and I saw the movie the first time, I thought he was human. And then when I watched it the second time, I also like it that he's a replicant. You see this in a few other movies. I never finished Solo, but I remember in Solo, the Star Wars movie, they touched on like the fact that before the Millennium Falcon was born, there was like this bot. It was fighting for robots' rights. And as far as we know, robots in the Star Wars universe don't really have feelings. Maybe they do, because we actually see C-3PO, he's terrified for his losing.
Don't go on this tangent, Ty.
But,
Don't
it
do
is
it.
interesting. Like, I'm just saying, in the world of replicants, like, what gives us the right to like kill them?
I want him to be a human so that it makes his relationship with Rachel more interesting. He views her as a replicant after he does the test.
Slams her against the wall like a replicant.
He's just a total douchebag to her. He's like, remember when that spider had the babies? Those weren't your memories. And then he Skypes her and he's like, so, sorry I was mean. Do you want to come to the bar? And she's like, ew, no. Harrison Ford sees her as nothing but a replicant. And then you see this arc where he kind of sees her as something more than that. That's more interesting to me versus Harrison Ford just realizing, oh gosh, am I really a replicant?
My laptop's about to die.
Can't you get a charger, weirdo?
I'm not at home.
Cameron, why don't you just die?
I'm sorry, Chips.
Chips. Sorry, fellow Chips.
I actually would recommend this film, surprisingly. I think I'm going to give it a 7. I actually want to rewatch it to kind of understand it a little bit better.
Yeah, because I don't really understand the gymnastics. Getting someone in a headlock between your thighs, I don't know what that does to somebody, but...
I actually made a giant list of things that just don't make sense and are confusing in this movie.
Recently, I watched The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, which was really good. I watched The Lake House, which was cheesy but good.
The Lake House, is that the one where Keanu Reeves sneezes?
Yes, that's the worst sneeze of all time. Even Mom was like, they need to teach him how to sneeze. And then I watched Baywatch, which was kind of like an hour and 50 minutes. I can't really get back in my life. It was okay.
Oh, I know, dude. I can't stand Baywatch. I'm sorry.
It was a solid 2 or 3 out of 10. And then I watched Watchmen, which was super visually amazing and dang good.
The Watchmen movie or the Watchmen show?
The Watchmen movie. And then I watched Nocturnal Animals, which was kind of mind-blowing. The more I talked about it, the more I liked it. What I'm going to try to probably watch this weekend is definitely Time Lapse. I've been meaning to watch that forever. And same with Logan, either Bird Box or Valkyrie.
Bird Box, boo.
No, you gotta watch Bird Box for the scene where, that meme where the guy like makes her look at something. I'm not gonna spoil it, but that's like a meme everywhere. And it's like, look at it. It's like so great.
It just makes me think of SpongeBob, Patrick, when he's like, look at it.
I want you all to look at it. Bird Box was like the most watched movie when it came out on Netflix, which means nothing.
Well, if you like this, Cameron, you should watch another Ridley Scott amazing movie and watch Alien.
Watch Alien over any of those movies.
Or we can wait till we get together and we can watch it together.
Yeah, I'll watch it with you. And then I might even watch Blade Runner 2049 as well, because it's one of my best friend's favorite movie ever.
Cool beans, Cameron. Hey, thanks for being on the pod. You can still be here, chime in, but when you die, just let us know. Well, wait, you won't let us know.
It's that 4-year lifespan.
But
Just make sure that when your battery's about to die, you say, time to to die. And you stroke your head.
Good.
Yeah, and then a dove will ascend.
Oh, I love all the Christianity symbolism. The dove at the end, kind of like his spirit leaving his body. And then you also got the part where he takes that spike and he puts it into his hand.
Oh, yeah. I'm so dense. I didn't even get the spike in his hand. I was just like, oh, is he trying to keep his hand from clenching up? Oh, okay. Duh.
We don't really know anything about his backstory, which would signify that he probably doesn't have a family life. Like, is he just this 35-year-old loner that just lives alone and hunts robots? And the fact that he was created to destroy his own kind, and how does he feel morally about that? Again, the way he treats her.
Kiss me.
Kiss me. It's like very inappropriate. We view it as like a man treating a woman like that. It's totally unacceptable. But like for some reason in this world, in this dystopian.
Have you guys seen the video of that robot girl that she's like, and supposedly it's not an actual AI. The robot was saying things like, I want to be treated just like anyone else. And I'm like, if the robot is put into the wrong hands, I feel like that person can tell that robot to say anything it wants to. Harrison Ford telling this robot to do stuff with him. And it's like, it's because we look at robots as not human. And so it's just interesting, like, at what point is a robot, when it's smart enough to start to understand things, when do we start to treat it like a human? Or do we need to treat them like humans? I don't know. Maybe that's a dumb thing.
It's not dumb at all.
Well, I just didn't want this discussion to turn out like that what Ty just talked about, how robots should have equal rights and stuff. Like, I don't...
Could you imagine living in a world where it's like they're so indistinguishable from real human beings, where they actually appear to be more was it self-learning? But you could assume that they start developing their own tastes, their own likes. Rachel is hurt when she finds out she is a replicant. So to her, it was very important to feel like those were her memories and to have Harrison Ford just crap all over them.
Yeah, but can they, if all it is just tons of different things people programmed it to be? Like, can it actually think for itself? I don't know. I just don't.
Jordan, why do I feel like you would be a real-life Blade Runner? You're like, oh, yeah, die, shoot all the replicants. You're like, yeah, you're not human. I bathe in replicants' blood, man.
Maybe.
I was really disappointed how Rachel's character kind of has this crescendo. She's this very strong woman. She's taken the test and she's smoking her cigarette. He's given her the questions and she's answering them very confidently. And then she finds out she's a replicant. I thought that the whole movie was going to be her basically trying to prove to Harrison Ford that she's different than the other replicants, or that she's not a replicant, or that I am a replicant, but I'm more than a replicant. And she basically just becomes like this really submissive, meek thing. Like, after Harrison Ford pins her against the wall, she's like, I want to kiss you.
And in the back of her mind, she's like, just please don't disprogram me or disassemble me or shut me down.
Yeah, and I was like, this is weird, because I thought it would be cooler if she was something more. There's that part where she shoots Leon in the head. He's like, time to die, and then his forehead explodes. What if Rachel just takes off running? Harrison Ford has to find where she is, and what is she doing? Because how does she reconcile that she knows she's a replicant? She just shot one of her own kind. And he's like, oh my gosh, she's actually dangerous, a replicant that I should be hunting down as a Blade Runner.
And she saved his life, and so now he has to decide whether or not to go after her. I like that a lot.
Life for a life, right? Like Mulan, right? You know?
Oh gosh.
Oh boy.
The great sin of being a woman, he must cut her head off. And then it's like, oh, you saved my life, I guess I'll just leave you here to die in the mountains. We're fair. It's like, how is that even fair?
You like all this female empowerment. I need to ask if you liked The Last of Us 2.
Oh, I haven't played Last of Us 2 yet.
Whoa, slow down. Female empowerment doesn't necessarily mean lesbian. Let's get that straight. What is it with everyone thinking that women empowerment has to
I'm not
don't be
talking
with a
about
man?
I'm not talking about the lesbian stuff. I'm talking about there's a scene where they go in this room and all the people in power are all women. I'm just curious.
I'm okay with all that stuff so long as it's not forced and so long as it works in the world and it feels, relevant to the story. So like the Hunger Games, they have a lot of female presence, a lot of female leaders, and it doesn't feel out of place at all. We're to a point now where, we got Nancy Pelosi. Culturally, we're just like, yeah, that's totally fine. It's not weird at all. Just so long as it's not like being shoved in there. That's why I have a problem with the Han Solo thing, where it's like, androids need equal rights. It's like, that just doesn't feel like it has a place in Star Wars.
Yeah, it does, right? That poor robot in The New Hope, or was it Empire Strikes Back, where he's getting his feet burned, or maybe it's The Return of the Jedi, where he's like, no!
Did it ruin the Millennium Falcon for you when you found out that she was put into the Millennium Falcon? I wanted to shoot myself.
A little bit.
It destroyed it for me. I'm like, F you. Screw you.
The Kessel Run used to be this mysterious thing. It's like, what is it? How did he do it? And instead it's like this monster vortex, cheesy VFX tornado thing. And you're just like, that's the Kessel Run? Like, what the heck?
Oh, man.
They took everything cool and just, oh.
Rachel's character, I think, as far as the movie's concerned, one of the most complex replicants. They had to do 100 questions to figure out if she was real or not. And he goes, she doesn't even know that she's a replicant. It's like Inception, right? He planted those ideas. Whoa, Inception? Oh, did I just like tie it all back in? He actually planted those ideas in her head. Like, that's pretty remarkable.
They bring her back in Blade Runner 2049. I was curious, Wesley, I'm sorry, because you're an animation guy, so I just have all these questions. How do you feel about, where they bring back like people that are dead with those little CGI things, like in Star Wars, they brought back Leia. Do you like that stuff, or does it bother you? How do you feel about it?
I think when they brought back Sean Young in Blade Runner, it was eerily good. I think when they brought back Tarkin in Rogue One, you could kind of see the CGI. It wasn't quite as perfect, and maybe it's because the lighting was different. I think Roger Deakins was like, how can we light this to where we can hide the CGI? And it's that really high contrast, lit from above kind of a thing. That's like a thing in VFX. That's why Jurassic Park holds up so well, because a lot of the dinosaurs are being shot at night with the really bright rim lights, and you can see their wet skin. Whereas at the end, when you see the T-Rex and he's in the lobby and he turns around, it's like, okay, it looks kind of CG. I don't know if the technology is just getting better and better, or if they just lit it better and it was just better executed. But like in Tron Legacy, which Jeff Bridges, they do a CG Jeff Bridges, and that one was pretty rough.
How about Henry Cavill's mustache in Superman or Batman, Dawn of Justice, sort of? I want to bring up a moral question. Like, is it right to bring back somebody from the dead, to have them star in a movie and say words against their own will?
I don't know. I think if you do it in the right way and
No, here, let's take an old Jewish actor. What is his name?
Ty, there's a lot of Jews in Hollywood.
Prevalent Jew
in Hollywood?
I'm just saying, he dies and you bring him back and you make him star in a movie as a Nazi. Tarkin wouldn't have been upset. He loved being that evil general from Star Wars that we all loved growing up. And it's like, well, how do we know he's dead? Can we ask him? No, but we can take his likeness, we can take his voice, we can make him say whatever we want. I'm just saying, this technology.
Ty, I think you're overthinking it.
Oh, you think I'm overthinking it? Just wait, 10 years from now, buddy, we're going to come back to this podcast and be like, I called it. In the future, we're going to have presidents of the United States.
They already did it in Forrest Gump.
Yeah, no, but that's all like fun and friendly. I'm talking about like conspiracy theorists. Someday a video will hit and it's going to be airing on the news, and it's going to be our president or some king of the world is saying something, and it's just all CGI, it's all fabricated, and we'll not know the difference. I'm thinking 10 moves ahead, guys. I see everything.
People already do stuff like that.
You've seen those deep fake videos on YouTube, right? I think we're getting off topic a little bit.
Even when there's real things happening, people are like, oh, is this doctored? Is this fake? Like, people are already in denial even of real stuff, like flat earthers.
I think it is something to be careful of.
Thank you. I have a VFX artist here. You heard it here first from Wesley. Do not give your toaster any rights.
Oh, jeez.
It's very important to make sure that you're getting reliable information from a credible source. But I think in the entertainment industry, I think if they go to the surviving family, and they're like, hey, we'd like to use this particular actor's likeness, and the family is okay with it.
If the family makes money off of it, the family's going to be okay with it. They're like, yeah, go ahead. How much do we get? How much money do we talk in here? You can use my dead grandpa.
Why not?
You're talking about this stuff, Ty, like it hasn't happened. It's already been happening for a long time now. Paul Walker, that's what I was thinking about. They did it, and his family got the money for the Fast and Furious.
I'm looking forward to 2040 when we get Chris Farley back and Don Knotts, and we can see more films starring my favorite dead movie stars.
Making a whole CG movie with that would be extremely expensive, and so they would have to kind of ask themselves, is there somebody who's as funny as Chris Farley?
No, there isn't. Let's say two things that we disliked about the film. Maybe they held back in a few instances where I laugh at, and maybe they were like, no, that was a conscious choice that we made. So people watching the movie in the 80s actually still felt like they had some tenuous grasp of what they were doing or what the characters were up to at that point. Jordan, do you have anything you dislike about this movie?
No, not at all. Like in the theatrical version, you see that cord lifting up the car. And then I also like seeing about the guy that fell and smashed through all that glass. You actually see a dude in a wig. It's really funny.
Oh man, I got really hopeful and thought, man, this is, some really crazy chick. But
dude in a wig.
And Wesley.
I don't feel like the replicants are relatable enough to make me sympathize with what they're going through. Rutger Hauer becomes relatable only at the end when he saves Harrison Ford's life. He goes to the Chinese guy that makes the eyeballs and threatens him. He goes to Tyrell and he threatens him and kills him. He goes to JF Sebastian, threatens him, and then later kills him. But you guys are all kind of mean and you're kind of scary, and I don't really feel bad for you. Like, I kind of want you guys to get killed,
That's when the Tyrell should have been like, I'll tell you in 2 years. Come back in 2 years' time. And then he's dead. Oh, thank goodness. I dodged a bullet there. By my own creation, Frankenstein style.
Why is Zora exotic dancer in the Snake Hole Lounge and Pris, who is the sex worker, why is she doing the backflip cartwheel fight scene? Because Zora, at the very beginning, she's supposed to be the one that was on the death squad.
Isn't Deckard like a trained Blade Runner? We need the best Blade Runner. I know they need exposition told, but it's like Harrison Ford's sitting in there and he's like, yeah, we gave him a shorter lifespan. He's like telling him things that he wouldn't know.
It's like if there's a basketball movie and Michael Jordan comes in like, we need the best. And he's like, by the way, if you get fouled, you get to do a free throw. And he's like, oh, good to know. And it's like, wouldn't he know that? Because he's the best.
Exactly. Oh, which, by the way, only credits the fact that he is a replicant because he's being initiated. He's being told what his mission is, and he doesn't get it. Just saying. Oh, snap.
It feels like there's a lot of wasted screen time. Looking at photos, shots of the cars just kind of driving through space. It's all beautiful and it's interesting, but it drags. It makes the movie feel really slow, and I got kind of sleepy.
I will be honest, yes. It has a strong ending, strong beginning, yeah. The middle, JF Sebastian guy, I don't know why. He gives me the creeps, man. He finds some girl laying out in the dumpster, and he's like, come into my place. And he has puppets and midgets and all kinds of who's it, what's it, and it makes me feel really uncomfortable the whole time.
There's this one scene where Rachel, she's wearing her pointy shoulder outfit, and she comes over, and she's like standing in the kitchen looking at Harrison Ford, and she stands there for like 20 seconds. Could you have cut out like 10 seconds of that? For crying out loud. Like, this movie is 2 hours long. Like, it would have been great at 90 minutes, Ridley Scott. Harrison Ford is just drinking, and he's looking at the photos, and he's playing the piano. It's like, yeah, this is all great for like substance and style and stuff.
Have you seen movies like The Shining? Do you just fast forward through it?
I fast forwarded through probably 80% of 2001: Space Odyssey. If you watch that whole movie on like ×3, it becomes a really great movie.
Oh, no, you're one of those people that watches their movies sometimes.
Which I know that makes me a horrible person, but...
Wesley's that guy that's like clamoring for Netflix to have the ×3 speed. He's like, speed through my movies.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
No.
Wesley, it's okay. You're facing your own mortality, man. You're really old here. You got gray hairs coming out of your head, and you're like, I'm gonna die soon. I gotta hurry up. I gotta watch all these films.
Tyrell's reasons for building super realistic replicants doesn't make sense unless he's purely making sex bots. If most of them are meant to be soldiers or miners in the off-world colonies, why do they need to have all these emotions? They just need to be super strong and obedient, kind of like the clones from Star Wars.
If you had that gift, I think you would want to be like God, to create robots with almost sentient life, to be able to create something that is human.
When Harrison Ford says, like, why are you doing this? He says, commerce is our objective. More human than human. If your goal is really commerce and to make money, then make your replicants stupider and stronger. So Rutger Hauer's character is confusing in his motivations. Why does he kill Tyrell? Because I thought, wouldn't it be cool if he holds Tyrell hostage and says, okay, if I'm going to die, the Nexus 7, can you make it so that they won't have a 4-year time clock? Or do like a John Q, do like a Denzel, where he's like, you know what, I'm going to chain your doors. You're not leaving this room until you fix it.
He just told him he can't fix him. So imagine your creator said you have no purpose, you have nothing to live for. You wouldn't gouge out your creator's eyes?
Why does Harrison Ford call Rachel and mention Taffy? Who is this guy that he's trying to get Rachel to come down and meet? Like, what? Rutger Hauer's Tears in Rain speech was really good, and I wish that the rest of the dialogue would have been as interesting
Oh,
as
interesting.
that.
Well, the funny part is he's the one who wrote that, so maybe he should have wrote the whole script.
Rutger Hauer pulls Harrison Ford's hand through the wall. Why didn't he break a third finger for Leon? Blade Runners have to do it solo. Why doesn't he call for backup?
I don't know, some people work better alone. You ever watch 24, Jack Bauer?
Yeah, true. Visually, it's so cool. And I imagine, like, in 1982, this must have blown people's minds how different this was. First time I saw this, I got so excited when I was like, oh, this is going to be like a film noir. Like, this is going to be like a murder mystery. And Rachel's going to be the femme fatale. Harrison Ford is going to fall for her. And because she's a replicant, she's going to lure him in, and then she's just going to screw him over. And Harrison Ford is going to be dying with a smile on his face because he got suckered. The murder mystery thing kind of stops after he kills Zora. Finds the chickadee who says, oh, this is a genetically engineered snake. Oh, look at the serial code. Oh, this is the guy who bought it. Finds out the dude that sold it to her. He finds her, shoots her.
And then has the best altercation with the villain. How old am I? Punches him right in the face. And then he goes, I don't know. Throws him against the side of the car. Why is that my favorite scene?
I love it too.
He's like so enthusiastic. Time to die. Okay. gosh.
That guy was a little unhinged, wasn't he?
Yeah, he
From
was.
the very beginning, what's a tortoise? Turtle. Is that part of the test? That part made me so antsy.
I love how wide his eyes are too. He's like,
That opening scene was one of my favorite moments because it just kind of sets the tone.
Oh, watch the 2049. They have a great moment. It's an homage to that, and it's much more exciting. Ridley Scott made probably one of the few 80s movies that people are still talking about. I think if you watch 2049, there is things that I think you would enjoy more.
don't build his expectations too high, and then he's going to be upset again. This one has at least 40 minutes of him just walking around. So I'm just saying, you're going to have a lot of fast forwarding.
Just watch it on that special ×3 speed. You love
Yeah,
so
just watch
much.
it on the times three.
You freak.
Oh gosh. Oh, I'm digging myself a hole now.
What happens when there's audio? You can't even understand what they're saying, right? It's just like chipmunks talking the whole time. Guess if you're into that.
I hit resume when they start talking. That's what I did for 2006 Odyssey. Anytime I saw their mouths moving.
But sometimes Hal was speaking and you couldn't hear his voice, but it would be really funny. And I bet Hal is not very menacing at ×3 speed. He's just like a chipmunk. Sorry, Dave, I can't do that for you.
I didn't fast forward through most of the house stuff.
He sold it for me.
He's the most interesting character, yeah.
Yeah, he is. And again, not even human. That is a good sci-fi movie. It's when the creatures, the robot, whatever, are more interesting and compelling than the humans.
Have you seen Westworld, Wesley?
I have not.
It's more sentient robot stuff, and it's about video games.
My favorite episode of Star Trek The Next Generation is when they have a robot crewman named Data, and Starfleet comes and says, hey, we want to disassemble you. As the viewer, you know that Data is a robot, but you've been watching him for all these episodes, and you love Data because he's such a fun character, and you know that he's more, but he's a robot. So you're caught right there in the middle, asking yourself, at what point does a machine become something more? How do you treat it?
Hey, Data, why did the chicken cross the road? To get to the other side. Starts laughing like a robot. I don't know how Data laughs. I don't watch Star Trek. I'm sorry.
Rutger Hauer has those cool tattoos on his arm. Did you notice those? Did you get those when he was, off-world?
Dude, they could make a Blade Runner TV show.
Or a video game.
Cyberpunk. I can have my sex robot.
Oh, jeez.
All right, so we're gonna move on to quotes. Any quotes from this movie you want to throw out?
Yes, I got a billion, but I'm gonna try to sum it down to a couple.
Let's hear it, Jordan.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on the shoulder of Orion. I watched sea beams glint in the dark nearly 12 hours a day. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in the rain. Time to die.
Brilliant.
I love this movie. That end quote.
Nicely done.
Dude, I felt it, man. That was really well done, Jordan. Give me goose pimples, man.
I almost got up and bore my testimony in church and just started saying that quote. It's powerful.
Oh,
That was
man.
so great. Oh, my gosh.
Oh. There'd be like a handful of people in the congregation who'd be like, oh, I get it. And everyone else is like, what?
What is wrong with this kid?
Tears in the rain, is that like in the scriptures somewhere? I don't get it.
Watch him take the pleasures from the serpent. Or I love the accents in this movie. Or Neojima, Blade Runner. He say you Blade Runner.
Tell him I'm eating.
Dr. Bryant? Oh, Brian, huh? I love the expression he gives, too. He doesn't give a whole lot of expression, like you said, but there's a few moments, and the first moment is after he says Dr. Brian, he said, Brian, huh? And he looks like, and then he gives this expression, and I love it.
Yeah, he does
So
kind of
good.
weird, half, one of his eyes is closed.
Yes.
He's got that smirk,
Yes, I love that.
He asked the snake lady, when he asks her questions, he goes into this high nasal voice. Harrison
Yes.
Ford's like, I'm writing a research paper about mistreatment of androids. He does the same thing in Indiana Jones. That's like Harrison Ford's going in disguise voice, and it's like so bad.
it's his nerd voice.
Yeah, the nerd
I
voice, the
love
nasally.
his nerd voice.
Oh, it's so funny.
His nerd voice is pretty great.
I just want to throw out, there is a total of 7 cuts of this film. Glowing umbrellas, I thought those were pretty cool. Lopan, who's played by James Hong, he plays Lopan in Big Trouble in Little China. He's the eyeball guy. I just got a shout out to him and John Carpenter's Big Trouble in Little China. Yeah, Mr. Barton.
He's 90 now, I think.
Yeah, he does the voices of Kung Fu Panda's dad. Noodles, the chef of the noodle shop. He's always around, and I love him, man. James Hong is my hero. So just
If you ever need that borderline racist Chinese character, you can always grab that guy, and he'll do that high-pitched Chinaman voice for you.
Mr. Burton, I will marry both women.
I built your eyeballs.
There's a lot of references to eyeballs in this movie, and I wondered why that was. Oh, because eyes are the windows to the soul.
Yeah, I love that opening shot.
hidden
Oh my
meaning.
gosh.
The eye, right? Yeah. Once he finds out that Tyrell built him with no further intention of using him, his creation destroys him by literally gouging out his own window to the soul. Pretty cool.
Gouging out his eyeballs.
Shuts the gate, man. Would you recommend this film?
I don't know if I'd recommend it.
I would discuss it for an hour and a half, but I don't think I'd recommend the film.
Because it is a very slow movie. People at Raven, like the people I work with, they love this movie. They love the crap out of it.
Wesley, did you see Eurovision with Will Ferrell and Rachel McAdams yet?
No, because I don't have Netflix.
Your family reminds me of the guy in the pub that keeps yelling, "Play Ya Ya Ding Dong again."
Taylor came in about right to where Rutger Hauer takes his clothes off and starts running around in his underwear. And she was just chuckling the whole time. This is not a Taylor movie, I think. She just had a really hard time taking it seriously. That's not to say that I wouldn't recommend it to people that I work with. I would be selective with who I recommended it to, I think.
I don't tell people to watch it ever. I just don't know who would like it. Personal to me, why I love it. I just feel like people would get bored.
I totally get it. Yeah, my favorite movie of all time is probably Gattaca. I don't know if I'd recommend it to people because a lot of people watch it and it's kind of fun. I connect with Jude Law's character because I always feel like never living up to my potential and everyone's just disappointed and my parents are disappointed.
And you've got a sexy Ethan Hawke doppelganger that can take your place.
When I go to church, I feel like everyone's better than me and I should just go burn myself in the cupboard.
I recommended Good Burger to my friends in high school. They all came over and watched it, and they still won't talk to me. I recommend this movie. I like it. I think it's a good discussion. If you don't like sci-fi, but that's just a dumb caveat. I do recommend this movie for just about anyone that likes film and likes talking about film.
I think if you're a nerd, you have to see it because it's influenced so much nerd culture.
Enhance.
Feels like a live action anime. It's just visually, it's so cool. You just have to see it.
Yeah, maybe just see it once.
I spent all night thinking about the movie after I saw it, so I really wanted to share it. Nerd out.
We're going to end the podcast by saying things that we have seen lately and things that we're looking forward to seeing. Let's start with you, Jordan.
If only you could see what I've seen through your eyes. Sorry. I saw Oldboy and I saw The Devil, and both had the same actor in it.
Yeah, Josh Brolin. Yeah.
What? No. What are you talking about? The American?
Yeah, I thought you were talking about the American version.
No, boo! Get out of here. Not the American crappy remake. I'm talking about the original foreign version. Both South Korean, both masterpieces.
How dare I?
Yeah, how dare you? Anyways, amazing. Watched him with my roommate for the first time. His mind exploded. I had to clean up his brains. I am not sure what I'm looking forward to. I don't know. Theaters are all closed. I'm so bummed. It's there's nothing new out. Oh, you mentioned Double Indemnity. Oh my gosh.
Double Indemnity.
Yeah, I want to watch that.
I sell life insurance. It's pretty much my life. It happens every day. Permeated into every film you see today. When you watch it, you're like, I didn't know they made movies like this in the 50s.
The shadows and everything are so cool.
I went on YouTube and watched top 10 craziest Eurovision contestants, and there's some wild ones. They paid homage to some of the real life contestants that they had, but Dan Stevens comes in and plays the Lion of Love. After seeing him in Beauty and the Beast and think Dan Stevens, I had no respect for that guy for leaving Downton Abbey. He kind of redeemed himself with this comedy. It was really funny. He's self-aware Russian guy, and it was really funny.
I think he needed a win after
that
Beauty
poor
and the
guy.
Beast,
I think his career was a sinking ship, man. Then I watched Jim Henson's Muppets from Space. Gosh, I love that movie so much.
I like that movie too.
I watched a really positive movie. It was called Brittany Runs a Marathon. It was really good. It was on Amazon Prime. I definitely recommend this movie.
Have a good cry.
And it talks about really complex subjects like body image and body shaming. I'm going to watch In the Vast of Night again. And I recommended this movie last time on the podcast. Watch it on Amazon Prime.
Oh boy. Well, I've watched a lot of Disney movies because that's what you do when you got little kids. Emma, with a period at the end. I watched that as a date night with Taylor. And the cinematography in that is unbelievable. In terms of other Emma interpretations, though, I like the BBC one better.
Is that the one with Cher and called Clueless? Oh, no, excuse me. I like that version.
Shut up.
That movie's really good.
Taylor and I have been binge watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel simultaneously. And that's been a lot of fun.
I just remembered we just finished Space Force tonight. That's the one with Steve Carell and John Malkovich. It's pretty fun.
Oh, I heard it was kind of
It's got Greg Daniels, who worked on The Office and Simpsons. A lot of creative minds behind it. To me, it reminds me of Dr. Strangelove. It's kind of like a satire, and you have war-hungry generals, and it's kind of funny to see what are the most powerful people behind the most powerful nation nation on Earth talk about behind closed doors, and it is kind of funny. Like, we have all these missiles and we never get to use them for anything. And she goes, yeah, I talk to my therapist about it all the time. It's definitely not on par with The Office, but I don't think anything does. But when I see Steve Carell, I'm like, oh, I miss watching The Office, and I'll go watch it again. All right, so everybody, you can write your emails.
futuremovies@gmail.com.
Write your emails in, because we're lonely, and if you have any questions, deep thoughts, or if you just really write us an email,
Maybe
you
we
will
should
be
just say
featured.
people should just tweet us or something, because isn't that what kids are doing these days? Nobody emails anymore, except when you're at work.
Well, if you have a long-form discussion question, you can't tweet because you only got 144 characters, man.
Well, do we want to read a 2-page email?
At this point, you would be the only person.
I'm such a boomer, I don't even understand how Twitter works, so...
Peace and blessings, everybody. Thanks for joining in at Futro Hidden Movie Gems podcast. Wesley, do you have a presence or something like that? You want to let people know what you're working on, or people follow you on Twitter? I guess you don't have one. You dinosaur.
A new Call of Duty game is coming out this year, and I had the pleasure of working on it, and it should be pretty cool.
Do they have a title for it yet?
It has not been announced yet. It's still top secret.
I could tell you, but I'd have to kill you.
Yeah, the COVID work from home thing, it's affecting all the game developers right now, but we're powering through it, and we should have it done by the end of the year.
I like that your company usually always comes out with the Call of Duty games on time. Other games, it's like, oh, they're coming out this year, and it comes out like 10 years later,
Activision has a lot of resources. Towards the end, we all just kind of drop what we're doing and just work together to get them done. If it was just like one studio carrying the load, it would be a nightmare, but we're all one big, dysfunctional happy family. But of course that creates problems because they have to drop what they're doing to help us, and then their project gets farther behind. But yeah, we will get this Call of Duty game done on time.
And that's the Wesley promise. And if it doesn't come out, we can all know who to blame. We'll all come for you with pitchforks and torches.
That's right. It's my fault.
And Wesley's address is... Write this down.
No!
I just had one question. What's your all-time favorite game, really quick, being a game designer?
That's a good question.
Tell us now. Don't think.
I would say Horizon Zero Dawn for the PS4. I thought the story was great. I loved Aloy. I loved her character. I thought the combat was cool. The robots were freaking awesome. It was manageable. Like, a lot of open world games, they just kind of give you like 150 million side quests, and you just are like, I'm never going to finish this game. Whereas it felt big enough to where you're like, okay, I'm going to get, $60 worth of content out of this. But then it felt manageable, and my favorite game of a recent year. Even more than like God of War and Red Dead 2 and...
Nothing like living real life, skinning an animal alive in real time, going outside and playing with your dog or your kids. I tried playing Red Dead, and I got so overwhelmed when I found out after like 40 minutes of playing, I'd played the intro. And then I was like, oh.
Red Dead, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, they're just too big.
Regardless to what Ty says, I would love to have you on when we talk about video games.
Yeah, I would love to do that.
I love you're starting this beef. I never said I didn't want to on for video games. I said, do we do video games on this podcast? It's called Futro Hidden Movie Gems.
One a year. What's wrong with one a year?
Hey, movie listeners, we're going to review a video game today. What?
Yeah, pick a very cinematic video game like Last of Us 2. That's basically a movie.
Yeah, Ty.
Walking Dead. Ooh.
I feel like they're connected. Ty, being a purist. Movies only on my podcast.
Exactly. I want to do one
you.
book a year, and I want to do one video game a year. I don't think that's that big a deal.
Do the Walking Dead comic books count? Is that what your book is?
Yes, I'm totally doing that.
I figured that's the only book you've ever read, so.
I mean, yeah, it's true.
That and the Bible.
I'm going to read the new Hunger Games book, truthfully. Edit out all my farts, too.
Join us next week to talk about Jojo Rabbit, directed by Taika Waititi.
So everybody, thanks for tuning in to Futro Hidden Movie Gems podcast. You guys take care. Stay safe, y'all. Jordan, sign off.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.